Welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm Lee Rennick, Executive Director of CIO Communities for CIO.com, and I'm very excited and honored today to introduce and welcome Tony Alvet, Group Vice President, Worldwide C-Suite and Digital Business Research for IDC. Tony, welcome to the show today. I really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me, Lee. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, normally we get to meet in person sometimes at the CIO Awards, but now we're doing a virtual interview because I was really interested in talking to you about some of the research that IDC puts out. We've developed this series to support the technology leader in their tech and leadership journey. So maybe you could start off by introducing yourself and then maybe telling us a bit about your role at IDC and perhaps some insights about the research that IDC puts out to support tech leaders.
Sure, absolutely. So I've been with IDC for a number of years, and I currently cover worldwide, as you said, worldwide C-suite and digital business research. What does that really mean? Well, the C-suite side of it is understanding what's a priority for the CEO and other CXOs in those executive leadership positions in enterprises globally. The digital business research is looking more at profiling companies and their journey to become a digital business fueled by AI. So this is such an important topic right now, and a lot of our research centers on the topic of AI as the interest is booming in enterprises today.
Your job must be very rewarding because getting the research, working on it, learning how that could impact on the C-suite and the tech leader. We talk to a lot of CIOs about their elevated role now and how they are an educational partner of the CEO and the C-suite. And then all businesses really are digital at this point. I mean, it's very hard not to be. So I'm really excited to have this opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing with us. And so, I do talk to a lot of CIOs on CIO Leadership Live, both in the UK, the US, and Canada. And tech leaders are really talking about how Gen AI so far has impacted business teams and productivity. Productivity seems to be the main word there that I'm hearing. A lot of CIOs saying we're building out internal productivity. We're not quite customer facing, external customer facing yet, but we're working on it. And so, as mentioned, I'm excited to have you on the show today because IDC just released the 2024 Gen AI Use Case Survey special report. It was just published. You gave me a sneak peek into about 40 pages of it. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about the report.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great study, and it starts by if we roll back to the beginning of the year when there was so much interest in generative AI in enterprises. We asked our analyst teams internally first at IDC to develop a set of taxonomies or definitions of what are the potential use cases in enterprise across business functions. So we actually had 13 taxonomy reports across the different business functions. So think of finance or HR or marketing or even software development. So those taxonomies were great about the art of what's possible around Gen AI, and those analyst teams went really deep. What we then did is take those definitions of the 250 or so use cases and took that to a enterprise survey of over 3,100 enterprises globally to understand where those companies were on their adoption of these potential Gen AI use cases, or even how far down the path they've gone and what are the business outcomes they're expecting, what are the measures and metrics they care about, what they're spending on, and even the approach. Are they going to build versus buy, or some combination of what we call compose? So a very timely and important study that we think will be valuable to both CIOs and end users, but also vendors looking to support them in their journey to become an AI fueled business.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that the insights I got just from the summary that you sent over, especially around those types of things. Yeah, for any of the vendors listening in here, there's definitely some great insights as to what the CIOs and the tech leaders and the C-suite are thinking about how to roll this out. I know Meredith Whalen, who's our Chief Research Officer, she was at the CIO 100 in the US and did a really great presentation on the research to date, around sort of the Gen AI scramble, and now in 25 and 2026, looking at that Gen AI pivot. So companies are really going to be, ensuring that they pivot to build up those efficiencies and productivities. So I appreciate you sharing about the report itself. On that, there are several key findings with the research report. Could you take us maybe through the top 3 or 4 research findings that you could share with our listeners and our audience?
Sure, be happy to. First, we found that really organizations are enthusiastically embracing Gen AI use cases. And one thing that was really different about this study versus a lot of other surveys out there that look at sort of the top level organizational perspective, maybe looking just at co-pilots and how they're deployed. This one, we actually went down to the individual business units and asked about use cases that pertain to their department. So we were talking to knowledgeable respondents that say in finance or in operations about what they care about and what they're planning to implement in the next 18 months or beyond. And so we found adoption plans were very enthusiastic, maybe a work in progress for many organizations, but definitely a lot of enthusiasm. Second, across all the use cases, efficiency and growth were the most frequently mentioned business benefits. We look at business benefits or outcomes through a lens of 12 different areas for improvement. So efficiency or productivity, that tended to be the most common mentioned benefit in back office and technology functions. But in the front office, like customer service, marketing, and sales, the most common expected business benefit was revenue growth. So you do see that both internal and external perspective around generative AI. And I think that's important to recognize. It's not just one thing for one organization. It really depends on the funding department and where their goals are to become a more advanced digital AI fueled business. Another key finding is we asked about the different data inputs or data types because generative AI can be working from a basis of unstructured data, text, video, code, images, and so forth. A multimodal approach was evident to be the most common approach of organizations that we talk to. So an adoption strategy for most enterprises is also going to be to compose their Gen AI model, which means that, yeah, they might build some components of it or they might buy, but essentially it's taking a combination. So if you're just using a public large language model, what's the differentiation for you in your business or in your company? You may need to enhance that by training or doing further inferencing with your own IP or your own data set. So I think that compose approach to generative AI is going to be the most common. And that's what the survey showed. And then finally, in terms of spending, IDC has published forecasts in the last few weeks around the growth of AI and Gen AI in particular. And our survey also showed that growth is expected. So spending is increasing year over year from this year to next. So budgets are, the C-suite and line of business teams are telling us budgets are increasing around generative AI. And I know there's a lot of questions about what's the return on investment and where are the business benefits. Well, our survey is telling us that organizations are seeing those benefits and are expecting to increase their spending on generative AI into 2025.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you for sharing those findings. It aligns really well with some of the CIOs that I was speaking to at the CIO 100 and then I chat with, they're talking about just the impact it has on the business with the data, having, one CIO told me they have, 200,000 different inquiries like from customers, and that usually would take weeks to go through and sort, and it literally took it down to, I think, hours. So just that idea of productivity, but then saving on the output of the finance aspect of it too. This sounds like a very great report, and we'll make sure we include a link in the post for those who want to click on and see all of our IDC research and what we have to offer to support the CIO and the C-suite in their leadership journey. All right, so we're recording this in November. We're heading into 2025. Tony, I'd love to hear any key strategies or thoughts you have about Gen AI and its impact on business for 2025 and beyond.
Sure, I'll leave you with 3 things. One is, there are still some challenges. Not everyone's in that advanced kind of mode of adopting and understanding how to implement in their own business. So organizations should really think about a strategic approach and a platform first, a unified platform approach. Gen AI is one of those, technologies that hit the general public by storm, and it was almost pushed from the C-suite down to organizations to say, hey, what are we going to do with this? So that caused that whole Gen AI scramble that Meredith Whalen talked about at this, the CIO Summit and awards. And right now, organizations need to say, okay, we need some structure around this, and having that strategic platform approach is first. Second, I think, is really thinking about a portfolio approach rather than a single point of light use case approach. I think there's business benefit in scaling and economies of scale and scope by looking at a set of use cases rather than one at a time within a team or across department. Procure to pay, which involves finance as well as a procurement department. So that portfolio approach is very smart. And also, the third thing that I would suggest is the whole responsible AI aspect of this is extremely important. We're at a seminal moment in the industry, and there's a lot of question marks around what AI is going to do for business, but also for society at large, and how that relationship between the vendor, the enterprise that's using it, and their end customers, building trust, and it all starts with responsible AI. So taking an ethical approach, being transparent, being accountable, and keeping the human involved in this. The black box approach is not going to build trust, and being open and transparent and having that responsible AI approach loud and clear is extremely important going into 2025.
Thank you so much. 3 really great points, and I appreciate you so much sharing those with me and just providing some insights into our audience listening in today. And I really appreciate you joining me here today, Tony. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thanks a lot, Lee.
Thanks again. And if you're interested in viewing this or other videos, hop on over to CIO.com.